I think this evening we had a significant vote in the Senate today, so maybe we'll start with the senators. The bonding bill was before your body today, and the results and maybe where are we headed. So perhaps Senator Hoffman, you want to lead, and then we'll have Senator Dames can follow up.
You know, it was a good discussion that happened, and you know, the end of the discussion, there was 41 votes for the bonding bill, which we need. You know, you need 42 on a bonding bill in order to pass. And and I'm still scratching my head wondering what did happen today. I mean, that was the kind of the question that was in front of us, because when I looked at the proposal that was in front of us, it was pretty bipartisan and pretty much covered the whole state. And I even had to go back and look back to see just, you know, where some of those bonding projects were. And a couple of things to point, especially with, you know, interest rates are going to be the lowest you've ever seen in a while, and so now is the time to get good credit. And I would hope that this doesn't stop the process. And, you know, unfortunately, at the end of the day today, the process was stopped. And so the bonding bill doesn't move on in the Senate anymore. And so, you know, that's pretty much the piece of it. And again, I go back, there were some really important things. You know, rail safety, we had some, the public safety piece in there, because we know, especially where I live, there's 1 million gallons of crude oil that travels through my community on a daily basis. And there's one particular area, Hanson Boulevard, which has been deemed as a pretty crucial area, and there was other places. I know Moorhead, Wilmer, Winona had some places too that have the same issues with the train traffic, especially when it comes to public safety. And to see that just all of a sudden disappear was kind of disheartening. I was very disappointed, you know, to say the least in that piece of it. And some really good ones. I am sad to see some of the RFA proposals that were in there. You know, when you get the
RFA being
Rural Finance Authority, Rural Finance Authority. I'll look at Gary on this one. He knows more a bit about that, but I have some.
The Public Finance Authority, isn't it?
PFA, Public Finance Authority.
No, that's different.
That's a little different, yeah. And the Rural Finance Authority gives farmers the ability to get, especially when they're talking about their cash crops, to be able to get some low interest money to get started. And there was, I think, $25 million in there that would have helped rural Minnesota. And I know some folks that where I grew up, that's an important piece of what keeps them going. And to see that disappear, I think, is again, very disappointing for me.
All right, the report from your side of the aisle. Now we'll turn over to Senator Dames and your aspect on the bonding bill vote today.
Well, thank you, John. And I think there was disappointment on our side of the aisle, too. I think the disappointment is the governor introduced a bonding bill at $1.4 billion. The House is talking approximately somewhere in the neighborhood of $600 million. And so we expected the Senate to come in reasonably around, probably the governors are a little bit less. We were kind of thinking maybe $1.2 billion. This bill comes out of the blue at $1.8 billion. And if we look at a lot of the things in the past, I mean, we've never done over $1 billion bonding bill. So to get to 1.8 just that quick was disappointment and somewhat of a surprise. But getting beyond that, when we start looking at some of the reality of it, when the February forecast was done, what we used in that forecast was $800 million. And that's what our forecast was done on. Now, what this does is the forecast then would be off immediately by about $11 million just this year for the cost on doing the bonding at another $1 billion. The finance, when we did the budget in finance last year, that was done considering we had a bonding bill of about $800 million. When you put another $1 billion on top of that, we're going to have tails of $85 million in the next biennium, which wasn't accounted for. So when we look at things like that, we've got to step back and take a look. Yes, interest is cheap, but it's just like a credit card. If you start overusing it, pretty soon you have issues. And so we felt that we offered an alternative bonding bill today that we felt was a very good compromise. It was $992 million. Of that, 700 was GO bonds, 150 was transportation funding. So we felt we had a very good compromise. So we were quite disappointed that our bill didn't receive any DFL votes. We felt it was a compromise, and afterwards the statement is that if the Republicans want to do nothing session, they've got it off to a good start. Well, we have to back up and take a little bit of a look at that because, first of all, bonding bills technically originate at the House. So in this case, all at once we're going to try to originate one in the Senate and then send it back to the House on, I believe, and John could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Health and Human Services bill we were going to send it back over to the House. So this should not stop the process at all. This is the start of the process. We've made it very plain we're willing to compromise. We just want our DFL friends to do the same as we're doing. And to say that this is going to be the end of the bill, if that's the attitude we're going to have, that could be the end of the bill. But I would hope that we don't go there. I would hope that we compromise, get back to the table, and come up with a bill that everybody can work on and pass. And at the end of the day, I do think that'll happen. So,
if I may, Senator, you brought in the House side of this, and maybe we'll turn to our senior member of the House, one of the two senior members, to say, all right, procedurally now, given the vote in the Senate, what happens with the bonding bill?
Well, as was pointed out, bonding bills constitutionally must originate in the House. It raises an interesting question because my understanding was the Senate was using a House file. So that probably would be the argument, did it meet the constitutional muster or not? But while we're on the subject of bonding or capital investment, the House Ways and Means Committee, when they set the targets, set the target for a $600 million bonding bill, which in my opinion was far too low when you consider the infrastructure needs of the state of Minnesota. And they did that a year ago as well, came in with a very small number, and then they moved the number up until it finally reached the $800 million that was alluded to earlier. My problem with doing it that way was that it really prevented much input at the committee level to put that bonding bill together, and it was really done more top-down last time because of the lateness of the House putting together a bonding bill. And we seem to be on that track right now. There hasn't been, even at the $600 million level, a bonding bill put together by the Capital Investment Committee in the Minnesota House. But infrastructure needs are huge. Those bonding bills do create jobs. And the other thing was pointed out, the interest rates are very low right now. So I think the timing is very good with low interest rates and the huge infrastructure needs to move forward with a significant bonding bill.
Okay. Turn to Representative Erdahl, because the House, not in voting today on that bill particularly, but as it comes around the table here, where do we head next from your perspective, from your House caucus?
Well, I serve on the Capital Investment Committee. I don't know if either of you do. Lyndon doesn't this year, but he has in the past.
For about 30 years.
As with pretty much most every other committee he's served on at some point. But I've been on the Capital Investment Committee for quite a few terms and traveled the state with Representative Carlson looking at projects as we did this last year. And historically, we do a small bonding bill in the first year of the biennium, roughly. I mean, small is a relative term, but about $200 million. And historically, we do about an $800 million bonding bill in the second year of the biennium. And looking at a bill of 1.5 of GO bonds and $300 million in cash was, I think, too rich for the Senate Republicans' blood and a little too rich for ours as well. We have a bill, well, we have an amount set, a target amount of $600 million. And that's our starting point. I'm sure that now as we only have a couple of weeks left, so things are going to have to start moving. And I'm sure that we'll be, taking that figure and moving along. I would be surprised if we wind up at $600 million at the end here. I look at a bill. I agree. We have some major infrastructure needs in the state of Minnesota. I like PFA funding. That's the water, the infrastructure, the wastewater. Our cities in rural Minnesota have some tremendous needs with some very antiquated sewer systems, and I want to see robust funding for PFA. We probably will have some money for local roads and bridges. I think the HEPR needs of our MnSCU and university system need to be addressed. It's like if you got a roof in your house and it leaks, you fix it. And we own the roofs of the colleges and universities, and so they need to be taken care of. I am still optimistic. I speak with the Chair Torkelson, the chair of our Capital Investment Committee, regularly, and I'm optimistic that we're going to have a decent bill done at the end that we can pass.
All right.
It's one of the things I just want to come back on, and thanks, Representative Erdahl for bringing it up. And Senator Dames, when he talked about the amendment, and as I was looking through that amendment that was brought up, or the proposal from the Republicans today, and it was a good conversation. And when I mentioned RFA early on, even in the amendment, the RFA money wasn't there, and neither was the AURI money, which that's an organization that helps do the marketing. Because if you're going to have the crops and produce and whatever you're doing out, in rural Minnesota, you just don't have the ability to market and brand it like you do if you were in a structured area where they have good marketing and branding going on. And so I was perplexed on that. And the other one that perplexed me too is when we look at our veterans and the deep need. We have some serious infrastructure problems. I know this because of sitting on Health and Human Services and seeing that, and then to realize that in the outer state of Minnesota, there were two really good bonding proposals for some infrastructure needs and capacity building for veterans services, housing, as well as that wraparound continuum services that are needed there, and that wasn't in there as well. And so I was just kind of, again, I'm perplexed as to what was the logic behind that, and I suppose that should all come out eventually. I mean, we're fresh off the floor, Gary, right? I mean, it's like
certainly respond.
So historically, bonding bills are one of the last thing that's done.
Yep.
And so we've got a couple of weeks. There's time to put together a proposal, and many times in the past, a bonding proposal has crashed and burned, only to be resurrected in some form again. So it's not time to give up yet. We've got some time. I think we'll come up with a bill that addresses some of these very important needs.
But I would say that's my point earlier is that if you're going to follow the legislative process and have the Capital Investment Committee put the bill together, then it has to go to Ways and Means, and then it has to go to a conference committee after it passes the House floor. And we're down to about 2 weeks, so our back is close to being up against the wall right now. The other thing I would make, or point that I would make about the capital investment bill, traditionally not all of the allocations in that bill are general obligation bonds. Some are revenue bonds or appropriation bonds, and are self-sustaining, like the Housing Finance Agency and so on, when they finance a home or an apartment building that would go through that, the Housing Finance Agency. Those dollars are paid back. And they're not paid back by the state of Minnesota. They're guaranteed by the state.
Senator Dames, a couple of closing moments
just
here on
like
bonding.
To respond on that, in that certainly, we can look at what's in both bills, but in the reality of it is we built our bill around transportation and infrastructure, and so in the Senate bill, we had a $1.8 billion bill. A week ago, we had $563 million of new spending. And if we remember to look back at last year, we had $863 million was carried forward because we did not complete our Transportation Conference Committee bill, and we did not complete the tax bill. So we end up with a $900 million surplus this year, so actually 863 of that was carried forward. So we were expecting that to go for taxation reform for the middle income folks and also for roads and bridges. So the DFL introduces a $63 million new spending bill, and so we put an amendment on that bill asking for that to be moved to transportation, and it was a straight party line vote, pretty much I believe straight line by the DFL not to support the transportation infrastructure. So that's fine. But then I would have assumed you'd really have supported in your bonding bill, which you did not do. If you take a look at the new money you spent last week and take a look at the $1.8 billion you had this week, you're at about $2.4 billion, and you only spent 10% on transportation, in the transportation portion of it. And so when we look at that, it really sends a mixed message, so we can talk about what was and wasn't in our bill, but we also have to be very honest and fair what wasn't in your bill. And right now, I am hearing more about transportation than I am probably anything else. Yet, on your side of the aisle, you avoided that and went to 10% out of bonding and the total money that was spent last week.
Right,
so, I mean, I think
yeah.
we have to look at the whole picture, and if we want to start pointing fingers, we can certainly do that, but it's a different philosophy.
And then I'm not pointing fingers, Gary. I think I used the word perplexed. I was just perplexed, fresh off there. As you look at the transportation side of it as well, there's still, you're right, there was not a finished on the transportation side, and there's still a big debate out there regarding, and we had this last time I was on the show on transportation. How do you pay for that transportation? Right. You know, there's lots of theories out there about, you know, getting into the general fund. And others saying, no, that's not right. How else do you find some long-term sustainable some funding? And you know, to Representative Carlson's point, you got 2 weeks. You know, so is that enough time? You think?
Well,
Representative
I have a suspicion that something will spring loose. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
We are in spring. And there's
It's the first day, right?
I think there's time. I mean,
Good to hear,
the Transportation Conference Committee is meeting this weekend.
Yep.
I think there's no debate about the need and even the total amount.
Right.
We're talking $7 billion over 10 years.
Yep.
I think that's similar to what the Senate and House Democrats are also talking about. The question is how. Do we raise the gas tax? Do we raise the sales tax? Do we pay it for it with some bonding money? Do we pay for it with some of the surplus? I mean, how do we come up with the $7 billion? And the whole problem, I think, is right there. How do we do that?
That's the debate.
When we talk about transportation and bonding, something I'd like to point out is that there are limitations on what you can bond for in transportation. Mm-hmm. It can be only local roads and bridges, so you cannot bond for the trunk highways, state highway system. And traditionally, there has been some bonding dollars for transportation, but it's actually been relatively modest because you usually pass a transportation bill separate from the bonding bill. Mm-hmm. And the Senate has done that, the House has done that. They're far apart, and hopefully they will work something out over the weekend in terms of what the approach will be. But those are separate vehicles, as we would say in the House, that are funding transportation. And I have a feeling that in the end the bonding bill will carry more than the usual historical $50 million or so. It'll be a higher number this year because of the political dynamics. But I think we have to keep in mind for the viewing public that there are really two tracks when we talk about transportation. And so I wouldn't want to leave the public with the feeling that the bonding bill was the only vehicle, if you will, for transportation. There's the other vehicle as well.
Good disclaimer.
Yes, gentlemen. Yes, it really. We're going to bond ourselves to some other topics. In fact,